This is Chapter 15 of What Grows After Goodbye by Alexi Hart. New Year's Eve dawned with a crisp blue sky and sunlight that made the snowdrifts outside Natalie's window sparkle like sugar. She woke earlier than expected, her internal clock still set to wrap 15 books and deliver 3 care packages before noon. Michael snored softly beside her, one arm draped over his eyes to block the light. She slipped out of bed, pulling on one of his oversized sweatshirts, and padded downstairs to start coffee. The house was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the soft clicking of the heating vents. It wouldn't be quiet for long. They had decided, somewhat impulsively, to host a New Year's Eve party at the Grove for friends, family, and anyone from the community who didn't have plans. Nothing fancy, Michael had insisted. Games, music, and a countdown. Maybe we can test out our karaoke machine. Natalie had laughed and agreed, partly because she loved a good party, partly because the idea of starting the year surrounded by the people she cared about felt like a good omen. While the coffee brewed, she flipped through the notebook she'd started for the bookstore. Swatches of paint colors, lists of local authors to invite for readings, notes on reordering inventory. A blank page waited for a name. Should she keep Whitaker Books? It had history and recognition. Changing it felt like erasing Mr. Whitaker's legacy. Yet, part of her wanted a symbol that this next chapter belonged to her, too. She jotted down possibilities. Willow Reads. Second chapter. North Star Books. The last made her smile, her fingers drifting to the snowflake pendant at her throat. She was still lost in thought when Michael padded into the kitchen, hair sticking up, yawning. "Morning," he mumbled, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Thinking about names again?" "Caught," she admitted, leaning back into him. "Do we keep Whitaker Books, or do we risk confusing the entire town by changing it?" "What about a compromise?" he suggested, reaching for a mug. "Call it Whitaker Books, a second chapter. Keeps the legacy and adds your own spin." Natalie considered it. "It's cheesy." "So are you," he countered, grinning. "And yet, here we are." "I'll add it to the list," she said, scribbling it down. "But only because your holiday sweater judgment has improved." They spent the morning hauling folding chairs and boxes of board games into the Grove. The co-working space, normally buzzing with laptops and quiet conversations, now echoed with the sound of Darlene directing traffic. "Hang that banner a little higher, honey," she told Carla, who had climbed onto a chair to tape a glittering "Happy New Year" sign. "We don't want the mayor knocking her head and blaming me." Carla rolled her eyes but adjusted the sign. "If the mayor knocks her head, it's because Darlene insisted on making punch with actual champagne," she muttered. "Only a little," Darlene protested. She wore a sequined blazer over a black turtleneck and had added a tiara to her ensemble. "It's a celebration. Michael, did you set up the karaoke machine?" "Yes, ma'am," Michael replied, plugging in an amplifier. "And we agreed that ABBA is fair game for everyone?" "Speak for yourself," Natalie said. "I'm saving my voice for when Carla tries to sing Adele." As afternoon slipped into evening, people trickle in. Helen and Walter arrived with a plate of deviled eggs and a Jenga set. Ryan joined with a couple of friends from high school, their cheeks flushed from the cold and their eyes bright with the anticipation of staying up past midnight. Members of the Grove brought homemade dips and cards. Even Mr. Whitaker showed up briefly, claiming he had a strict bedtime of 10 o'clock, but wanting to see the place when it's not full of laptops. The party had no set agenda. Groups formed and dissolved around games of Cards Against Humanity and Pictionary. A spontaneous charade session led to uproarious laughter when Walter tried to act out streaming service by miming a fish swimming. Carla turned out to have a hidden talent for karaoke, belting out Total Eclipse of the Heart like a diva, while Darlene and Helen performed a duet of I Got You, Babe that had everyone clapping along. At 11:58 p.m., Michael climbed onto a chair with a pot and wooden spoon. 2 minutes, he called out, banging the spoon like a gong. Grab your champagne or sparkling cider, people! Natalie found herself squeezed between Ryan and Darlene, both with noisemakers poised. Michael stood across from her, a sly smile tugging his lips. They counted down in unison. 10, 9, 8. Natalie felt the weight of the year behind her and the anticipation of the year ahead pressing forward. 3, 2, 1. Everyone shouted, Happy New Year! Confetti cannons popped, and Darlene banged a tambourine. Michael crossed the room in 2 strides and pulled Natalie into his arms. Their lips met, and the world narrowed to warmth and bubbles and the taste of champagne. Cheers erupted around them. Someone whistled, and a few people pretended to gag for comedic effect. Natalie broke the kiss with a laugh, breathless. Happy New Year, she whispered. Best one yet, Michael replied, pressing his forehead to hers. January 2nd was the official closing date for the bookstore. Natalie and Michael arrived early, paper cups of coffee in hand, to meet Mr. Whitaker and his attorney. The signing itself was anticlimactic, pen strokes and signatures, a handshake and a hug, but the weight behind it was monumental. Afterwards, Mr. Whitaker locked the shop for the last time as owner and handed Natalie the keys. It's all yours, kiddo, he said, his voice hoarse. Take care of her. I will, she promised. Tears threatened, but they were tears of gratitude. She hugged him, feeling his wiry frame and the steady beat of his heart. They celebrated by rolling up their sleeves and moving shelves. Michael produced drop cloths and paint rollers from the trunk of his car like a magician. I got the sage green you wanted, he said, holding up a paint can with a flourish. And a deep blue for the accent wall. Have I mentioned I love you? She asked, smiling. Only when I come bearing paint, he teased. They spent hours painting, laughing as they got speckles in their hair and on their clothes. Carla stopped by with sandwiches and ended up staying to paint a bookshelf. Darlene wandered in, took one look at the chaos, and announced that she was better suited to supervising from a safe distance. If you want my opinion, she said, perching on the counter with a coffee, call it Whitaker Books and Company. Sounds fancy, but keeps the name. Or call it Natalie's Nook, but that sounds like a bakery. We're considering all suggestions, Natalie replied, laughing, except the bakery one. Suit yourself, Darlene said, but a cinnamon roll sounds amazing right now. By the time they locked up, the once dingy walls gleamed, and the floor was speckled with paint drips. They stood together at the entrance, arms looped around each other's waists, surveying the progress. You know, Michael said, we're going to have to schedule an official grand reopening. Maybe hire that guy who played the violin at the Winter Festival. I'm already on it, she replied. And a book signing with a local author, a kids' craft day, dash... Okay, he laughed, cutting her off with a kiss. Maybe we go home and shower first. We still have paint on your ear. The first Monday after the holiday break, Michael received an envelope in the mail with a logo he didn't recognize. He opened it at the Grove while Natalie sat across from him, working on a budget spreadsheet. Her eyes flicked up when she saw his expression darken. What is it? She asked. An offer, he said, sliding the letter across the table. A corporate co-working chain wanted to buy the Grove outright. The offer was generous, painfully so. It would pay off his loans and then some. Natalie scanned the letter, her stomach turning. They must have heard about your success, she said. Or they want to eliminate competition. Michael leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. It's flattering, he admitted, and tempting. But no, I didn't build the Grove to sell it to a corporation that would strip out the coffee bar and replace our mismatched chairs with sleek white desks. I built it to be a place for our town. Natalie's shoulders relaxed. Do you want to tell them that, or would you like me to? Oh, I plan to write them a very polite no thank you, he said. But it does make me think. Growth could be good, but only if it's ours. They spent the afternoon sketching ideas on the whiteboard. Expand into the unused storage space to host workshops. Offer discounted memberships to students and retirees. Partner with the high school to mentor budding entrepreneurs. As they brainstormed, the temptation of an easy payout faded. Later that week, a snowstorm blew in with little warning. Heavy, wet flakes clung to power lines and tree branches, and by evening, the lights flickered ominously at both the bookstore and the Grove. Natalie shut down early, sending customers home with apologies and urging Carla to get off the roads. She met Michael at the Grove as the streetlights went dark. "Generator?" she asked, stomping the snow off her boots. "In the basement," he replied, flashlight beam bouncing. They descended into the cold concrete space where a portable generator sat in the corner. Michael yanked the cord. The engine coughed and then hummed to life, lights flickering back on upstairs. "Crisis averted," he said, grinning. "You are so Boy Scout," she teased, but relief warmed her. The generator wouldn't power everything, but it would keep the heat running and the pipes from freezing. After ensuring all was well, they trudged through the snow back to Natalie's house. The storm had transformed Willow Creek into a monochrome wonderland, everything muffled and soft. They walked in the middle of the street, arms linked, leaving twin tracks behind them. "We should make snow angels," Michael said suddenly. "We are adults," Natalie replied, shivering. "Exactly. Adults with free will." He tugged her into the front yard and flopped onto his back, spreading his arms and legs. She squealed as he pulled her down beside him. They waved their limbs, laughing, the icy cold seeping through their coats. When they stood, two uneven angels stared up at the sky. "Yours has a crooked halo," he said, brushing snow from her hair. "So does yours," she retorted. "We make a perfect pair." Inside, they peeled off wet layers and warmed up with hot chocolate spiked with whiskey. Natalie's cheeks were flushed from the cold and from being near him. They sat on the couch, blankets piled high, as the wind howled outside. "Darlene sent me her dating profile," Natalie said suddenly, remembering the text she had received earlier. "She wants feedback." Michael raised an eyebrow. "Let me see." Natalie pulled out her phone and opened the app. Darlene's profile picture featured her holding her cat, Mr. Whiskers, who wore a bow tie and looked unimpressed. Her bio read, "Book lover, bakery enthusiast, former hippie, and current glitter hoarder. Looking for someone to join my trivia team and maybe dance with me in the kitchen." "That's adorable," Michael said, trying not to laugh at Mr. Whisker's disdainful expression. She also answered the prompt, "My greatest weakness," with "cheese, all of it," Natalie added, scrolling. Michael snorted. "We should help her add some photos without the cat. Otherwise, she's going to attract only veterinarians and weirdos." They spent the next 20 minutes flipping through Darlene's camera roll, which was indeed mostly pictures of Mr. Whiskers and glitter crafts, and suggesting she include a photo from the ugly sweater mixer. Natalie sent suggestions and received a flood of heart emojis in return. By the time they had finished playing amateur matchmakers, the storm had quieted. The house glowed with a warm, lamplight coziness. Michael traced patterns on the back of Natalie's hand, his thumb brushing the snowflake pendant. "I keep thinking about what Mrs. Carlson said," Natalie murmured, her head resting against his shoulder. About things getting sticky but staying together.
Are you calling me sap?
He asked, mock offended. A little, she teased. Then she sobered. What happens if the bookstore has a slow month, or the Grove gets less busy? What if this all falls apart?
Michael considered. Then we adapt, he said. We tighten our belts, we get creative, we lean on the community we've built. We might stumble, but we won't fall apart because we're in it together.
Okay, she whispered. He turned fully toward her, his hand moving to cup her cheek. We're allowed to be scared, Nat, he said, but we're also allowed to enjoy what we have while we have it. I do enjoy it, she said. Sometimes it feels like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, like I'm not allowed to have this much happiness after losing so much. You are allowed, he said firmly, his voice low. You deserve it. He kissed her then, slow and reassuring. She melted into him, letting the worries recede. His lips moved across her jaw, down her neck, making her shiver. Not from cold this time. She tangled her fingers in his hair, pulling him closer. The kiss deepened, becoming urgent. They shed blankets and clothing piece by piece, laughter and sighs mingling with the crackle of the fire. His thumb found the pulse at her throat, like he was keeping time with her. They did not make it to the bedroom. Instead, they found themselves on the rug again, bodies warmed by the firelight and each other. It was different than the night after Thanksgiving. There was a familiarity now, a rhythm to their movement that came from learning each other's bodies, yet each touch still felt like discovery. They whispered and gasped, building to a crescendo that left them shaking and clinging to each other. His thumb brushed along her cheek in a slow, steady stroke, grounding her. Stay right here, he said. One breath for me, one for you. Good thing we put away the paint, he murmured, voice thick with sleep. She laughed softly. Imagine trying to explain paint handprints on the rug to Carla. I'd blame Darlene, he said, chuckling. She smiled, letting her eyes drift closed. The storm, the business worries, the future, all of it could wait until morning. For now, she drifted into sleep, surrounded by warmth and the quiet certainty that, no matter what, she and Michael would face it together.